The 19-year-old peasant girl who had helped turn the tide of the 100 Years' War now sat chained to a wooden block inside an English fortress, guarded by the very soldiers whose armies she had humiliated. The woman who had led troops, lifted a siege, and crowned a king would now be destroyed by men determined to prove she was no messenger of God, but a heretic deserving only fire. When Burgundian forces captured Joan of Arc at Compiègne on May 23, 1430, they seized the most valuable prisoner in France. That autumn, the English paid 10,000 francs for her and transferred her to Rouen, the administrative capital of English-occupied France. By December, Joan was imprisoned in the castle of Bouvray, a fortress under the control of the Earl of Warwick. The English had not merely purchased a captive, they had bought a weapon. By destroying Joan, they hoped to destroy the legitimacy of King Charles VII himself. On January 3, 1431, an edict formally charged Joan with religious crimes. She would be tried by an ecclesiastical court led by Pierre Cauchon, Bishop of Beauvais, a man deeply tied to the English occupation government. The accusations were familiar and carefully chosen: wearing men's clothing in defiance of biblical law, claiming divine visions, and refusing to submit fully to church authority. The trial would decide whether Joan's victories were acts of God or the work of demons. The formal interrogations began on February 21, 1431. Joan was led into the castle chapel to face Cauchon, and 42 clerics assembled to judge her. She agreed to swear an oath to speak truthfully, but refused to answer any question that might endanger King Charles. Over the next month, she endured nearly a dozen interrogation sessions. The judges pressed her relentlessly on 3 issues: her visions, her clothing, and her obedience to the church. Again and again, they attempted to trap her with questions designed so that any answer could be used against her. When asked whether she believed she was in a state of grace, Joan immediately understood the danger. Church doctrine held that no one could know this with certainty. To say yes was heresy. To say no would cast doubt on her divine guidance. Her reply was flawless. If I am not, may God place me there. If I am, may God keep me there. Even her interrogators could find no fault in the answer. The original 70 charges were eventually reduced to 12 articles of accusation. Joan defended herself with such clarity and intelligence that some members of the tribunal began to question the legitimacy of the proceedings. One cleric withdrew entirely, stating that the trial sought entrapment rather than truth. Another challenged Cauchon's authority to preside and was immediately imprisoned. Throughout the trial, Joan was held in conditions that violated every principle of canon law. Female prisoners accused of heresy were supposed to be guarded by women, usually nuns, in church custody. Joan was instead confined in a secular military prison, guarded by English soldiers who viewed her as an enemy. She was chained to a heavy wooden block, sometimes shackled at the feet, with guards stationed inside her cell day and night. She had no privacy, no rest, and no safety. Witnesses at the later rehabilitation trial testified that she was constantly harassed and lived in fear. When she fell gravely ill with fever and believed she might die, she begged to receive the sacraments and to be buried on consecrated ground. Both requests were denied. The Earl of Warwick intervened only enough to keep her alive, not out of mercy, but because the English had paid dearly for her and intended to extract full political value from her condemnation. The danger Joan faced went far beyond verbal abuse. Testimony in 1456 revealed that she was threatened with sexual assault by English guards, including at least one nobleman. This reality explains why Joan stubbornly continued to wear men's clothing, tightly laced and secured. It offered protection that a woman's dress could not. Joan argued repeatedly that it was safer and more proper given her circumstances. The judges dismissed the reasoning, but the danger was real. The trial itself was riddled with irregularities. Joan was interrogated for weeks before the charges were formally read. She was denied legal counsel. The court convened in Rouen rather than her home diocese, in direct violation of canon law. Evidence strongly suggests that trial transcripts were altered to make her statements appear more incriminating than they were. On May 23, 1431, Joan was informed that theologians from the University of Paris had reviewed her case. Their verdict was absolute. Her voices were declared demonic, her clothing unnatural and wicked, her defiance of church authority heretical. If she refused to recant, she would be handed over to secular authorities to be burned alive. The next day, Joan was brought to a cemetery and placed beside a stake. Terrified, exhausted, and abandoned by the king she had crowned, she broke. She signed an abjuration renouncing her visions and admitting deception. Her sentence was commuted to life imprisonment, and she was ordered to wear women's clothing. Days later, the judges returned to her cell and found her once again dressed as a man. Joan said her voices, St. Catherine and St. Margaret, had condemned her recantation. Later testimony revealed another possibility. Her guards had stolen her dress during the night, leaving her no choice. On May 28th, Joan was interrogated one final time. Her return to men's clothing was declared proof of relapse. Under canon law, a relapsed heretic could not be spared. On May 29th, the tribunal unanimously voted to hand her over for execution. On the morning of May 30th, 1431, Joan received the sacraments and was led to the old marketplace of Rouen. Tied to a tall pillar, she asked for a cross. An English soldier fashioned one from sticks and gave it to her. She kissed it and held it to her chest as the flames were lit. Witnesses heard her crying out repeatedly. Her final word, shouted above the fire, was, "Jesus." She was 19 years old. Her remains were burned twice more, her ashes scattered into the Seine to prevent the collection of relics. The English believed they had erased her. Instead, they created a martyr. 25 years later, a rehabilitation trial heard testimony from 115 witnesses and declared the original verdict invalid, corrupt, biased, and unlawful. In 1920, the Church canonized Joan of Arc as a saint. If you had stood in the marketplace of Rouen that day, watching a teenage girl call out to God as flames rose around her, would you have recognized it for what it was? Not justice, but judicial murder, carried out in the robes of religious authority to destroy a symbol too powerful to survive.